LittleFlameKitten. I am a 18-year-old cosplayer. I've been cosplaying for 4 years, and I just wanted to make a little video about my experiences and how I cosplay. So yeah, as I said, I've been cosplaying for 14 years. I started in 2016 at Comic-Con San Diego. My very first cosplay was Prussia from Hetalia, and he was made entirely from clothing that I stole from my mom, that I stole from my dad, and clothing from the thrift store. The only thing I bought was the wig, and I bought that off of Amazon for $10, and my mom helped me style it. During that time, I also made 4 other cosplays for my siblings. So I took a really big jump. I went from having no cosplay experience to making 5 cosplays in a week. I had 1 week, and I did it with my mom's help. She did all the sewing. I just kind of helped and stood there. I was 14 at the time. I had no experience with makeup or any type of dress up other than Halloween. And of course Halloween, it's all cheesy and kind of whatever. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I had only seen videos and seen other cosplayers on YouTube do it. And despite living in San Diego for several years, I had never gone to Comic-Con. I didn't even know it existed until I started cosplaying. And when I started cosplaying, before I started cosplaying, my friend came and she's like, I have an extra ticket to Comic-Con. Do you want to go? And I'm like, Comic-Con? What's this? And she's like, and she explained it to me. And I was like, I can cosplay. I can do this. So in a week, my mom and I put together 5 cosplays. And yeah, it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. I'm continuing to do it 4 years later. My siblings aren't as thrilled as I am, but I have grown these past 4 years from cosplay, and I have gone through several ups and downs with cosplay. I actually almost quit at one point because of several mean kids. They made fun of me and all that. So that can happen to any cosplayer as well. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is how I cosplay. I live on a boat, so I don't have very much storage space. I don't have a job, so I have very limited money. So things like that are weights, that are shackles to a cosplayer, that you don't feel like you can cosplay effectively without space to store big wigs, without money to make big cosplays. I've been doing it for 4 years and I'm having so much fun. Cosplay is not about how good your cosplay is. It's about if you're having fun or not. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong. So I started out cosplaying Hetalia, and what really snagged me and caught me in cosplay was the idea of CMVs, cosplay music videos. And if you've been on my channel before, you've seen I've made several. They are super fun. I love doing them. They can be quite stressful, but they turn out awesome when you're done, and maybe they're not perfect and not exactly what you wanted, but they still look awesome. And most people don't have an idea of what they were supposed to be before. Off track, but here we go. So I started cosplaying because of CMVs and because a friend invited me to Comic-Con. I've planned several CMVs, but I've only made a few. My very first CMV was made with a friend. She didn't even do cosplay. She just liked the same show. We both liked Hetalia, and I was like, hey, I have an idea for a music video. Are you in? Do you want to help me? And she's like, sure, why not? So we got together one day and we made a CMV. I had a script, I had written it for several months beforehand, but it was more an idea, guidelines to follow. We didn't follow it exactly. We had a lot of fun. We started laughing. We did a whole bunch of random things. That was my very first time ever being on camera, really. So it was a new experience for me. And this is a new experience for me. I don't normally talk to myself, but I just held a panel on an online convention, and it was super fun. And not very many people attended, so I figured, why not just make a YouTube video? That way people can go back and watch it, and some of my friends who don't have Discord can come and watch it. So here I am. But back to the point. So cosplaying, doing specific cosplays is very hard on a small space and a tight budget. Okay. Let's talk about some of the cosplays that I've started doing since my very first time. I have over 40 cosplays and over 24 wigs on a boat in a ridiculously small space. So you have to think creatively, think outside the box. You have to take a character and go, what can I do with this while still staying canon? Like right now, I'm in female Bakugo, which isn't canon, but, sorry, which isn't canon, but you can still see it's Bakugo. I didn't stray too far from his original character design. So, there are things like that. You don't need to stay canon. That's one thing I can say. The other thing that you need to keep in mind when coming up with characters, what are we, creating OCs? Yes, you can cosplay OCs too. When cosplaying a character, so one of my dream cosplays is Hero Bakugo. I love all things Bakugo. If you couldn't tell, hello. But I can't do his hero costume because his arm grenades, have you seen those things? They're ridiculous, they're big. Where do you put them? So I can't make big props like that. But you can take that concept and his design and make it into something else. Like, I made it into a bow. There are things you can do. You just kind of think outside the box. You've got to take a character, look at your own predicament, and see what you can do. 3/4 of the time, my cosplays are made out of my wardrobe. Things I wear on a day-to-day basis. And it's still, you can still see the character. You can still see it. Like, this is my Bakugo shirt because it's a black tank top. He wears a black tank top. You don't have to get his school uniform, his PE uniform, that's what it's called. His hero outfit. You don't have to get things like that. You don't even have to get his black shirt that he wears. You can literally get a black shirt or a black tank top. And there you go. You have a wig, you have black jeans, you have a black tank top, voila, you're Bakugo. There's no requirement to cosplaying a character. Do what makes you happy. Another thing I've run into is big wigs. Like Bakugo. His is super spiky. I kind of flattened it right now. But his is ridiculously spiky. And it's hard to have a spiky wig in a small space because you're like, well, what do I do with it? I actually put this in a box with like 20 other wigs. So it's squished. It's flat. It's got glue, it's got hairspray, and of course it needs a touch-up or two when you pull it back out of the box or the bag. But that's okay. Every wig is gonna need a touch-up eventually. Like, you're not gonna pull out a perfect wig that you haven't worn in several months and be like, oh yes, I can put this on. No, they need to be brushed, they need to be restyled, they need to be washed. Wash your wigs. I should probably follow my own advice. But I actually have cosplayed 2 characters that have ridiculously big anime hair. Yugi and Yami Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! I have done both of those characters, and I just had to think outside the box for the wigs. I did a female Yugi, so her wig was long and purple. It was about mid-back. They were cheap wigs, so they have some of a shine to them, but I didn't know a lot back then. It was 3 years ago, so I've learned a lot. But I took 2 things of West. I took a black and a yellow, and I sewed them on. I created a Yugi wig from a purple wig. I took black and yellow wefts and a purple wig, and I created something. And I did the same with my Yami. My Yami is a short red wig. It was actually long, and I chopped it all off, which still makes me sad, because I did a terrible job cutting it. So it's about chin length. It's pulled back with yellow wefts and black wefts and yellow. So it has all the colors of his character, just in a different style. So you can take a character and change up their style while still staying close to their original designs. You can do anything. It's cosplay. That's the point. Let's talk about how I store wigs. It's complicated. As I said, I have over 2 dozen wigs. And they all have to go in my room, which doesn't have much space. I live in 380 square feet with 6 other people. We don't have much room. So what we do, or what I do, is especially my spiky wigs and my Deku wig, which is super curly. Here, let's look at it. So my Deku wig is super curly. Don't mind, he's got a crown and a flower. We don't talk about that. But this is traveled like 14 hours in a car, in a duffel bag stuffed with other stuff. So just keep that in mind, that you don't feel, I'm sitting on my flannel, don't feel bad about putting your wigs in a bag. It's fine. I just flip my Kirishima and my Bakugo and my Deku inside out to help maintain some of the spikes or the curls, and put them in the box. They're fine. They need a little touch-up. It's fine. Whatever. Deku has to be recurled a little bit because he's a little flat, but that's fine. It's not that hard. It's like 10 minutes, maybe. But you don't need ridiculously spiked wigs. You don't need to look exactly like the character. Maybe that's your dream. So reserve a small spot, or a spot for that wig. So you can do that. I have space to keep a wig out, and sometimes I do. Like when I first got my Kirishima and first styled it, I kept it out for a few days so that it set, so that it didn't just immediately get smushed in a bag. You can do that. So you can do things like that. And I store them in a box, and I store them in my closet, which is that big and maybe that deep. It's not that big, and that's where all of my cosplay stuff goes. But it's easy for me. It's easy to think outside the box and go, what can I do with a small amount of storage space? Like right now, I'm not in my own home. I'm in someone else's. I'm watching their house. So none of this is my stuff. the closet's not mine, the drawers aren't mine, none of it's mine. So I have a mess down here. Well, you can't see it, but I have my wigs stacked in a corner down there, and they're just neatly stacked in their bags. They're fine. I think they're back. Okay. So you don't need big wigs, and you can flatten them. Don't be afraid to flatten them. It's perfectly fine. Props. So I talked about it earlier, I can't have big props, and I really want big props, but I have made several props. I've made Keith's knife, Blade of Marmora knife, not the full sword, the knife. I've made Deku's mask. I've made Shiro's arm. I have a few props. I've made them all. I don't have any swords, so because I can't do anything like that. But you don't necessarily have to have props. It's kind of if you want. So I went to San Diego Comic-Con one year, and I had an actual Captain America shield. And they took it from me because it was made of metal. So I went the entire day without having the shield, which you can do. And I wasn't recognized all that often, but this was 2 years ago, and I was doing a female version, so it's not that recognizable. But you don't need props. They don't need them, because what are you gonna do when they tell you can't have them? And you're like, well, someone dropped me off, like, can you go back to your car and put them back? Like, things like that. And they're really hard to travel with. They're just big, and they can break and things like that. Yeah, you don't need props. And if you want a prop, you can have a small one. Like, make a knife, not a sword. So let's talk about costs. So I don't have a job, so I don't have much money. All of my costumes are all clothing I wear or clothing I've made for that specific character. I've only bought one, and that was my UA uniform, the gym uniform. I got that for $40, but this is the only thing I've bought so far because I read the pros and cons of making and buying. That's always a good thing to do. For my wigs, I try to stay under $20 depending on the wig. This one was $17, my Kirishima was $17, but most of my wigs are $10 or less, or I make them. I'm working on one wig right now. It's made of yarn. So these were just things I had lying around. I had a mesh wig cap, I had blue yarn, and I was like, okay, I'll make a wig. So I started making that, and it is a long process. So start that early, or if you don't have a date planned for that costume, start it whenever. You can also take old wigs and redo them. So I have an old white wig and some white wefts that I'm going to turn into Zen, because I can do that. It's an old wig. I haven't used it for a couple years. Turn it into a new cosplay. I also turned one of my long white wigs into my Koneko wig. I just dyed it. Synthetic dye works great on wigs, so if you need to dye wigs, use synthetic dye. It worked great. I've actually even washed it since then, and it's still got the coloring. So you can take old wigs and redo them. Like, you can never stop upgrading a cosplay. You don't ever stop. Your cosplay is never perfect to the point you're not going to upgrade it anymore. Now, I don't want to like tell you your cosplay is never going to be perfect. It may be perfect in your eye, in someone's eyes, but in your eyes, it's got a few things that you're like, I wish this would be better. I wish I could do this. Like, my issue right here with this wig is this piece right here. I cannot get it to lay flat. Oh well, whatever. It's there. I see it. I don't know that anyone else sees it. But it's just, you don't have, like, You don't have to get a super expensive Arta Wigs wig. You're fine with that. My Deku wig was 10 bucks. It's curled, it's maintaining shape, and it survived a 14-hour car ride. It's perfect. Well, not perfect. It needs a little touch up, but yeah, all wigs do. It's less is more. It doesn't, you don't need a $30 wig when you can get a 10 that'll do the same thing. So just look for the cheaper wigs. I use Map of Beauty, which I'll link in the description. I found they're on Amazon. Cheap wigs, pretty good. I haven't had a difficulty. I haven't had any problems. They're not too thin or anything like that. They work great. The lighter ones you can see through every once in a while, but they've got several different styles and they're all great. One other thing is I know cosplayers have difficulty with is makeup. So I'm relatively new. I mean, I've been doing makeup for 2.5 years maybe, and I'm still learning. My very first cosplay, I didn't have any makeup. I think I might have glued down my eyebrows and painted them white, but I don't know, probably. But that was the extent. I didn't have any other experience. I didn't have any experience, so that's something that makeup skills come with experience. You have to practice and practice. My first time using eyeliner was Shiro. It took me 2 hours to apply it. 2 hours, just eyeliner. 2 hours. And it was difficult. My lines were ridiculously thick because I didn't know how to do thin lines, but 2 years later, I can do this kind of thing now. And I'm still learning. I mean, I just applied false eyelashes today, and it actually worked for once. But you just continue to learn, and yes, and so makeup can be expensive, but I use e.l.f. and Wet n Wild, and they're pretty cheap brands. My foundation was $5, my concealer was $3. I rummage around the clearance section in like Walmart. Check there, they've got a lot of good things there. I got 5 lipstick tubes for like $5, and that's great because, I mean, I was looking at spending $5 on 1 lipstick tube, so I bought 5 for $5. Like, look in the clearance section. Then I got my eyeshadow palette off of Amazon, which I think was $15 maybe, and it has over 20 colors, I think, and I used them all because my difficulty was trying to find an eyeshadow palette that wasn't $50 that had all the colors I wanted. I like using colors. I don't like the neutrals, I don't like the pinks, I like the reds, I like the oranges, I like the blues, the greens. Give me the bright colors, as you can see. But you don't need to go with the really expensive brands. Like, yeah, I've splurged a few times. My highlighter palette was $11, which is still ridiculous to think about, but I splurged a bit. I had a job then, I was getting paid, so I was like, I can do that. So, but you don't need to do that. You don't need all the fancy makeup. In reality, all you need is a little bit of concealer and maybe some sort of like eyeliner to give your eyes a little bit more defined. Honestly, you don't need makeup. It's just a preference. Because when I was 14, I didn't want to deal with makeup. I'm like, no, I can't deal with that. So at 18, I enjoy having it because it helps me get into character. Makeup is a preference. You can wear it, you don't have to. It's all up to you. Well, that's all I can think of right now, but if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them the best I can. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Bye.